Good evening, everyone, from the Eyewitness News Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Lee Goldberg here in the Weather Center giving you an update on a couple of things. Number one, still some severe thunderstorms rolling through the area. And the other thing, of course, is a Dorian update, as Dorian is going to be threatening the Carolinas over the next couple of days. And we may be talking about a landfall and maybe even multiple landfalls along the Carolina coast. But first, let me pass this along. There's a new severe thunderstorm warning, and that's for Ocean County. This is really the last in line here of some thunderstorm warnings that we'll deal with during the evening hours with a cold front working through. So that's till about 10:15. The remainder of the area is in good shape, and in fact, the severe thunderstorm watch to the north has been lifted. We had some damage across parts of the New York City area earlier in the evening hours, particularly in Gravesend, with some large tree limbs that were knocked down during the storms earlier. See, much of the damage was done up across upstate New York and New England. It was actually a tornado warning across parts of Connecticut. All right, so here's the radar right now. And you can see how storms are leaving parts of eastern Long Island, but you can see what's going on. There's one downpour near Brick, New Jersey, but these are the storms that are a little stronger, working across Stafford Township, Little Egg Harbor. That's a pretty nasty storm there, actually. It's going to work into the southern tip of Ocean County, so that could have wind gusts of 55, 60 miles an hour, some heavy downpours, obviously some vivid lightning. So you want to make sure you're inside as those go by. And once we're past probably there's a couple actually behind that in Washington. It might take a good hour for all of these to clear out and move off the coast, so something to keep in mind. So there's a cold front that's now moving through the area. You notice it was kind of steamy today, had a little extra humidity around. Well, there's a lot of dry air upstate, and that'll start to filter in during the overnight, and you'll notice the comfort factor is a lot better as we go into the day tomorrow. Much different feel, in fact, with sort of a filtered sunshine in mid-70s and lower humidity, might have more of an early fall feel. Futurecast has actually gone blank for some reason, so I'll go back and I'll find one right after. But let's go ahead and turn our attention to Dorian. Basically on that Futurecast, it was the storms in the short term that are going to be moving offshore. So basically I think after 10:30, we'll see any storms work past southern Ocean County. We're all in the clear after that. All right, so as we turn our attention to Dorian, let me just turn my messages on mute and let me just make sure there's not another severe thunderstorm warning. The last one that came through again was across Ocean County. Again, that's until 10:15. All right, so in terms of Dorian, now Dorian, if you're just checking in on the situation with Dorian, there was actually a little strengthening during the evening hours. Hurricane hunters found that, and now it looks like the hurricane hunters may actually have found some winds even a little stronger than the 110-mile-an-hour winds. So theoretically, it could actually go back to a major Category 3. So this next update is going to be very, in fact, as long as I'm looking at it, I should probably take a look as we're updating this, because the new 9 o'clock advisory probably just came in. So let me go ahead and just look at it on my phone here. Get the new advisory. We're dealing with so many storms across the Atlantic Basin. Gabrielle, Fernand, and let me see the update statement at 9 o'clock. Here we go. All right, from the Hurricane Center. Now still 110-mile-an-hour winds. It's 130 miles to the south of Charleston, 255 miles south-southwest of Wilmington, North Carolina, moving off to the north. That is a change, moving off to the north at around 8 miles an hour. So instead of more of a northwest move right toward the coast, a little bit more of a northerly move. That's good news for Georgia, but it's still not an escape route for the Carolinas. It's still going to come very close to the shoreline. So 110-mile-per-hour winds. The impact along the Florida coast is winding down. It's Georgia overnight, and then it's really the Carolinas over the next 1 to 2 days. Landfall or even multiple landfalls a possibility in South Carolina and North Carolina. So here's a look at the storm right now, and big wingspan. I mean, we've got some showers that are reaching toward the Outer Banks. There's some tropical streams of showers into South Florida and even into the Abacos again, but they're very light. So here's the deal. Still some light rain in Jacksonville, a few heavier showers trying to swing toward Daytona Beach. But what we're noticing here is what you have is now a flow is starting to come out of the northwest. So we're not talking about any onshore flow or surge in Florida anymore. That's all being pushed offshore. So the only thing they have now is some gusty breezes and a couple of rain bands from Daytona Beach north to the border. Now to the north, when we work into Georgia and the Carolinas, a different story. Now we've got the winds, which were paralleling the coast a little earlier, coming more onshore. So now that surge is starting to build up. And especially from, let's say, Myrtle Beach, northeastward, barely Charleston to Myrtle Beach. I mean, we could see some storm surges here in the 4 to 8 foot level with that. And already some heavy rain bands are coming in with tropical storm force winds. And in fact, the hurricane force winds, and let me just look at that and make sure that it's the same. Sustained wind, there's a couple of 50-mile-an-hour gusts along the Georgia coast. The hurricane force winds go out 70 miles. They're still offshore. The tropical storm force winds go out almost a couple hundred miles. That's with the expansion of the storm. So we're getting tropical storm force gusts in this area here, some 50-mile-per-hour gusts. But now with this, going north, you can see how when it makes its close pass at the Carolina coast, we could get some hurricane force winds going inland. The Dorian with 110-mile-per-hour winds moving at the north at 8. And the pressure is actually dropped a little bit. Not sure why we're not seeing a satellite map on there. So I'm having a couple of technical issues, but I think we'll be able to get all the information to you. So once we get to tomorrow morning, the brunt will have finished with the Georgia coast, and that's basically getting a similar impact to Florida. Some out of rain bands, some gusty breezes. But our concern will go during the day on Thursday all the way to Friday morning. And you can see how Charleston's in the cone. This is Cat Island and South Island in South Carolina. And then you have all the capes. Cape Fear, Cape Lookout, Cape Hatteras. All a possibility, because they're bumped out a little bit, that they could actually either get into the eye wall, potentially even an official landfall. So that's why we say from basically midday tomorrow to Friday morning, we could be looking at a landfall of a strong Cat 2 hurricane with 100-mile-per-hour winds and big storm surges as well, and maybe 6 to 12 inches of rain. After that, it's going to make a move to the northeast. So that's roughly about 250 miles to our south and east, meaning that we're just going to be on the northwest fringes of some of the impacts. Now, the storm is spreading out at that point. It's accelerating. The cloud shield will be pretty huge. So we'll be in a fair amount of cloudiness. And as the afternoon wears on, I think that's when you'll think, hey, there must be a storm offshore. We're getting the breezes to pick up. There's some rain bands coming in, and along the immediate coast, the rain bands could actually be pretty strong. If you're north and west, even though you're pretty far away, even farther away from this, that still doesn't mean you can't get into some of the rain showers. I'm going to show you that on a future cast in just a moment. But the big impact for us will be rough surf and beach erosion. Rip currents will last into the part of the weekend. And I know some of these September weekends are some of the nicest weather we have, and you might want to get some bonus beach time in. Lifeguards aren't at the beaches, and we're still going to have some rip currents, so beware of that. Sunday, the rip currents should be alleviated a little bit. 40-mile-per-hour gusts at the coast a possibility, and certainly some areas of rainfall. Okay, so what you see here is the area of yellow of the tropical storm force wind. So that's what we've seen in Georgia. But this area of red, look how that starts to fringe the coast. In Charleston tomorrow morning, northeastward to Myrtle Beach during the afternoon hours, getting to Wilmington in the afternoon hours with some gusts over 70 miles an hour, and then up toward Cape Lookout and eventually Cape Hatteras Friday morning before it moves offshore. Now, for us, it moved by pretty quickly, but the fringe of that was just offshore. That didn't come in here, but I do think we could have some 30 or 40-mile-per-hour gusts east end of the island and down the shore. Maybe some 30-mile-per-hour gusts in the city. Where we could have tropical storm conditions for a little while could be Cape Cod into eastern Massachusetts as we go into later Friday and early Saturday, especially early Saturday, I should say. All right, futurecast winds and rain. Again, I'm having a little technical difficulty with this. I don't know why that's not going in. But I will get back to that in a moment. And basically what it showed was the projected radar imagery, and it shows some of the rain that'll get into the area. But I have another futurecast that I'll run, and hopefully that will verify and show you some of the rain that'll get close to us. A lot of you have been asking about, and folks in the Carolinas have been very concerned about, the similarities with some previous storms. We're going to go through Matthew and Florence just briefly here. The track to Matthew is pretty similar, and Dorian's actually moving slower. Matthew made this pass in about a day, and Dorian's taking a couple of days. And, on this particular forecast track, the center track looks like it's a little east of Matthew, and that would be good. But, the cone is still right there. So, a similar storm surge, a 4 to 7 foot surge. There's going to be some flooding. The amount of rainfall, there was about a foot of rain in Matthew. That's a possibility too. So, pretty similar track in there, although a little different storms in terms of slower movement. Florence was a totally different animal. This came in from the south and east, and it just came perpendicular right into the shore and blasted in and slowed down and dropped about 20, 30 inches of rain. So that's not going to happen with this storm. Crowded Atlantic, Fernand going into Mexico. You've got Dorian. We've got a disturbance out in the Atlantic, and we also have Gabrielle way out in the far eastern Atlantic. The good news is Gabrielle's going to recurve into the Atlantic. This is going to go into the Atlantic. Dorian's really the only threat. Ferdinand's already going into Mexico and starting to weaken. All right, so I can see I'm not getting the imagery I want in this. So I'm just going to click out of the show and see if maybe it'll come back if I reopen the item. And it is not for some reason. All right. Basically what I wanted to show you here, tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening, we're in the lower 70s. We're going to have a lot of high clouds, which isn't depicted on this futurecast, but we have a lot of high clouds that are coming in, and that's the leading edge of some of Dorian. And what will happen is it kind of have that cool feel. Now, by Friday morning, there may be a couple of showers here off to the south. And then during the day, what's likely to happen, you see we're probably stuck in the upper 60s most of the day. The reason why you see a 70-degree reading to the north, farther away from what is Dorian, and maybe the clouds are a little thinner. But what our maps have been looking like is that by late morning on Friday, there could be a band of rain out ahead of everything that could actually be running through Connecticut, the Hudson Valley, and northern New Jersey. So I don't want you to think, if you're watching from the northern suburbs, that it's too far away for you to see some rain showers on Friday. You'll probably need your umbrella. By the end of the day on Friday, there could actually be a heavier band of rain right here. And part of that could get eastern Long Island and Jersey Shore, and maybe there is some steady rain that even gets back into New York City. So I could see how parts of the area get, a 1/10 of an inch or less way off to the north and west. Maybe there's a 1/2 inch to an inch of rain down to the coast. It's going to be a very close call. We're that close to the rain band with that particular storm. So with that in mind, here's the way the forecast looks. Gusty storms are winding down now. I mean, basically, we just have a shower thunderstorm over, a strong thunderstorm over Southern Ocean County. If you're just joining us here, severe thunderstorm warning was over Southern Ocean County, and that'll go until 10:15. Then skies are going to clear out, and the humidity is going to start dropping as we go into the day tomorrow. So, cooler and drier tomorrow. Call it filtered sunshine. That's the high clouds, kind of a milky sky as the day goes on, and that's some of the cloud shield from Dorian that's racing northward, about 75 degrees. And then for tomorrow night, 63, partly to mostly cloudy skies, and I talked about those late showers off to the south. Here's your 7-day forecast. So we've got a cooler and drier day tomorrow, pretty pleasant. On Friday, start out mostly cloudy. By late morning, there might be a rain band in the north and west, and then some showers that are approaching from the south. And it's especially the second half of the day and a Friday night where some bands of rain can come in, and it can get pretty wet for a while for your Friday evening commute and into Friday night. There's some leftover clouds on Saturday. Showers are moving away. That should be a day where we improve pretty rapidly and get mostly sunny by midday and afternoon. Nice day, 76. And again, if you're thinking about making it a beach afternoon, we're still going to have some rip currents in the wake of Dorian's passage. Sunday looks great, partly sunny skies. As we go into early next week, Monday should get off to an okay start. Clouds are going to increase. There's a little piece of energy sliding to our south. I mean, this is still way off, but I think there's an opportunity for some showers to get in by the end of the day south and west of New York City, and kind of an off and on shower chance, nothing too heavy, Tuesday into Wednesday, and temperatures struggling through the low and middle 70s. So Sarah, I don't know if you have any questions right now. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to shut down my show here. I'm going to try to pull up those futurecasts so everybody can see that. The reason sometimes what happens with our show player and our graphics production is that when you're working it, at high RPM like we've been doing here for the past few days, sometimes it can get clogged up a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and just shut down this show, and then we're going to open it back up. Brian Field coming back from there. What's up, Brian?
How you doing, Lee Goldberg?
Did you know? Wait, what was the 9/11 event you went to tonight?
Are we live?
Yeah.
Oh, great. It was a fundraiser.
Not to put you on the spot.
Fundraiser for the 9/11 memorial.
Yeah.
Hi, guys. How are you? It was down at Cipriani downtown, so we
Nice
were down
event.
there for a good cause. Yeah, it was great. Great
Nice.
event.
Sorry I couldn't join you.
Well, we know you were busy covering all this crazy weather.
Yeah. AKA wasn't invited, but it's okay.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
good.
Bill and I went down and represented the 11 for you. So it's okay.
That's good, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're just doing some Dorian coverage and some
Okay.
thunderstorm coverage.
If you need me, I'll be covering the Yankees game.
What's going on with the Yankees? Anything?
Yankees are up 4-0. Aaron Judge with a home run.
All right.
Which means we'll hear from Bill Ritter tonight at 11. I know you're excited about that.
Oh, boy. All right, good stuff. Go ahead, Sarah.
I do have a question. So we had a question, more of a comment that the viewer said she felt like this hurricane has been lasting so long.
Yeah.
Is it lasting longer than other hurricanes, or is that not necessarily true? But if so, why do they last as long as they do? Can you
Okay.
explain a little bit of the science?
Okay, sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. Number one, this formed out way out in the eastern Atlantic, off the African coast. So it was named, I believe, on the 24th. So the storm started to brew, cluster thunderstorm started to brew 24th, and I think it was named shortly after that. Was it the 28th that it made a run-in with Puerto Rico? But basically, we tracked it way far out over the Leeward Islands. Then it went and made a brush on the eastern half of Puerto Rico. Then it really started to blow up in intensity. And it was moving along at a pretty classic pace. But once it got to those northwest Bahamas, what happened was the steering winds that were carrying that along kind of collapsed. So as it is down in those latitudes, in the southern latitudes, there's not a lot to push things around this time of year. The jet stream is pretty far to the north. So as that collapsed and the thing just put on the brakes, it was just a terrible setup. So when you're saying, yeah, you're hearing about this forever. We're getting a lot of Dorian fatigue here. It's taken forever to go. It's taking, one of the longest possible tracks, and it also stalled for a couple of days. I mean, the northwest Bahamas stayed in the eye for about 40 hours, and then it stalled for the better part of 15 hours over Grand Bahama, and now it's only moving. It's under 10 miles an hour, moving paralleling the coast of Florida and now up toward the Carolinas. Now what you're going to see is now it's going to cover a whole lot of distance in a short period of time because it'll get into some of those westerlies, the jet streams, and it'll start picking it up and it'll accelerate. Once a storm like that gets to our latitude, it just races along. The concern is that doesn't always happen. I mean, remember, Sandy kind of stopped and then took a left right into us. It's all about its surroundings and its steering currents. One thing we are noticing with recent storms is we have more blocking patterns in the atmosphere. So storms are tending to get stuck like a Harvey or a Florence, which is a terrible trend. We don't want that to continue because that means a storm can batter one place for a long period of time.
And just another one, as people are concerned about how we'll be affected in the tri-state area, we had some questions about if you think travel, flights, that kind of thing is going to be an issue up here Friday.
Okay, that's a good question. I'm hoping that my futurecast will come back. I think we could have some small delays. Oh, good, it came back. So it's. Let me just preview this, and we can go through that futurecast, and I can take you through it. Okay. All right, perfect. Okay, so here's the morning tomorrow. There are the high clouds that are coming in from Dorian during the afternoon. We're dry, we're kind of cool. We're in the low and middle 70s. Then tomorrow night, couple showers, even by Friday morning, may start to skirt the Jersey Shore, maybe the South Shore of Long Island. And let's see if, again, this futurecast puts that little, there it is. It keeps showing that. It's like a signature that late morning, there's going to be some interaction with some upper level energy coming in from the northwest, and there might be this sort of secondary reflection of a band of rain up through Connecticut and the Hudson Valley, so we may have to watch that. Then look what happens. So later in the day, you've got this heavy rain that is just offshore, so a few bands may get on the eastern end, maybe on the Jersey Shore, maybe even back to New York City as we go into the evening hours, and then it'll start to retreat. But there's going to be a period there later in the day on Friday and a Friday evening where it could get pretty stormy on the east end of Long Island. It's in the 60s. We got some gusts 30, 40 miles an hour, maybe even more, maybe even some heavy rain. So the east end, not pleasant on Friday night. And if you're trying to make that sort of bonus run out to the east end for summer, you might want to delay the trip. Just let this get away late Friday night. So in terms of delays around here, I don't expect anything major. It's not that we're going to be shut down or anything like that. Bless you. But we will have some gusty winds, so there may be some slowdowns on the East Coast, but it's not like this is hitting the megalopolis hard or anything like that. Any other questions, Sarah? Okay, she went back. Let me see. Now, there might have been, let me see if I can grab the other map that I didn't get to show you here. Okay, let's see. Yeah, oh, great. Okay, did I put some stops in this? No, I didn't. Okay, so there it is with the, the heaviest bands of rain, the hurricane force winds offshore in these areas of red right here. So watch what happens as the storm continues on its northerly course. Look how near Charleston and right here near Cat Island in South Carolina. Now we're starting to see the core of that. Maybe it's not landfall, but the core of it starting to get on shore tomorrow morning. So they're getting potentially some hurricane force gusts, some heavy rain and gusty winds. And that sort of continues as the thing just skirts the coast. And it's kind of interesting, like there's Cape Fear, circulation super close to that. That's Thursday evening. There's Cape Lookout, 1 in the morning on Friday. And look how far in. I mean, even to Virginia Beach, you're getting some heavy rain and some gusty winds there. And then there's the center. I mean, is it ultimately the best chance for a landfall? Maybe right on the Outer Banks here before it moves off to the northeast. And look at that. See how the rain skirt? Look how close. I mean, we're super close to that heavier band of rain that likely stays offshore, but we're likely to at least get some rain from it. It's a cool day. It's a breezy day. You get a lot of clouds around, so definitely a cool feel. But once that gets out of the way, sometimes once you get a system like this to get out of the way, you can have some of your nicest weather as you're in sort of the subsidence or sinking air right behind it. And by the way, there's that system off to the west that I think it's sort of feeling that system coming in and trying to link up with a little bit, not phasing completely, obviously, but that's why that band in the morning may develop north and west of New York City. All right, so that's the way it's shaping up right now. I just want to go back to the severe weather that we've currently at hand. Let's just see if that warning is still up. Yeah, severe thunderstorm warning still up for Ocean County until 10:15. Let's just go ahead and get that radar view one more time for those of you watching down there. And there's a lot of lightning down in Stafford Township. Let's just zoom into this storm right here. Wow. Okay, so, right on Route 9 there. Barnegat down to Little Egg Harbor, Stafford, going to LBI. And will the next round likely to slide to your south? So this should be the worst of it. And figure that'll be offshore after about 10:15, another hour or so. All right, so that's the way it's shaping up. We're going to keep track of all the advisories coming in between now and 11 o'clock. It'll be very interesting to see whether the Hurricane Center were to upgrade Dorian, which is a possibility. But at the very least, it's not that it's a weakening storm at this point. It's kind of, maybe it was influenced a little bit by some dry air to its west, or its interaction with Florida, or a little bit of upwelling that happened. Upwelling meaning bringing some of the colder water up when it was sitting over the Bahamas. But right now, looking pretty healthy at maintaining at least strong Category 2 status as it makes a run at the Carolina coastline. Thanks for clicking on ABC7NY for all of your weather information. I'll have an AccuWeather update at 11 o'clock. If there are any more warnings between now and then, watch Channel 7. It'll be scrolling at the bottom of your screen, and of course updated on all of our social accounts. Take care.